guys, welcome to Home Sweet Homeschool. If you're new here, my name is Ashley and I'm a homeschooling mom to one. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you my honest opinion on Gather Round Homeschool's Botany unit. We just finished it up. It was one of our last units of the year. We actually alternated it with the transportation unit. So we would do a day of transportation, a day of botany, a day of transportation, a day of botany. I mean, you get the picture. We enjoyed it. It was something to look forward to, doing something, different each day. And so we love the botany unit. So let's talk about botany and let's talk about Gather Round if you're new. Gather Round is a unit study approach, meaning it includes all of your subjects except for math, and it is made available to teach your youngest kids like pre-K age all the way up to high school because there is a level for everyone. If you need help placing them, you can look in the frequently asked questions and it'll give you some tips about where you can place your kids. But I always like to say, you know your kids the best and you can look through the levels and see where you think your kids will fit. And so it may not be where their typical age level might fit, but do what works best. You want your kids to enjoy it, and so put them where you think they fit the best. Now for us, I bought the one student digital because I have one student, and so I always just buy that. That comes with the teacher guide and the level that I chose for my son. My son was a 6th grader this past year. He's 12 years old, and the upper elementary was the perfect fit for him, and we hope to transition into the middle school level probably around October of next year. So upper elementary works really good for us. You can see samples of what all the levels look like if you go to Gather Round Homeschool's website. It has a sample, actually many samples from all the levels, so you can get a good idea of what the levels look like. If you want to see a flip through of botany, I'll link it down below. I do have a video of that and you can check that out. Now let me just go ahead and say, here at Home Sweet Homeschool, we love to keep it simple. Another thing is we are not gardeners. There's nothing wrong with that. If you are, that's wonderful. If you love to garden, we're not gardeners. Number one, we live in a subdivision, so we can't have a huge garden in our backyard. We do have restrictions on what we can have in our yard. And we don't like to grow things. And that's okay, because not everybody does. So if you have gardens, that's great. And if you don't, that's okay too. So if you're like me and you just don't have a garden, that's okay. You don't need a garden to be able to do this unit. We were able to take walks outside and go to the park and meet all of the needs of this unit, or to even look it up online. So don't think that you have to be outdoorsy, that you have to love plants or any of that. Anybody can do this unit. I actually love this unit and I learned so much more about plants. I mean, I can remember in school talking about plants. I remember that, and you learn the same stuff every year, it seems like. But this unit just really dove deep into it, and I learned a lot. We both learned a lot, and it's things that we're still talking about. Oh, remember when we talked about this in botany? We've learned a lot from this unit. I love the way it was written. Whoever wrote this, I could look and see who wrote it, but whoever wrote it, it was so well written. It did not feel like a science textbook at all. It was just so well written, and it's just like a story of plants, and it was so good. So this unit is set up like the other units. So in the teacher's guide, you are going to have your lesson plan pages, and I know I've said it before. I don't know why I put it in a binder. I did not enjoy it. It was big and bulky. I didn't like it. So I probably won't do that again, but if you like binders, that's fine, but that's kind of my only complaint, and that's my own fault that I didn't sit there and use my Pro-Click. So Pro-Click I love. Put in a binder I wasn't into. But you do get the lesson plan pages. You also get the book list, and just like I've said in my other videos, these are suggestions. You do not need these to complete any of the lessons. Check and see what you already have at your house. Check and see what your library has. Look things up online. Use book services like Epic. You're going to find plenty of plant books. That's hard to say. Say plenty of plant books 5 times. That's hard to say. You're going to find plenty of them without getting any of these off the list. These are just suggestions. There's also a supply list, and when you watch my flip through, you'll be able to see these up close. But it's nothing too crazy. Like, it's just, you know, having things for the kids to be able to grow a bean and having a plant to look at. So it's nothing hard to do. I mean, they're all very easy. So that is in there in your teacher's guide. You'll be able to see the table of contents, all that kind of stuff. One of the fun things that I loved about botany was you do start a bean plant, and we just put it in a mason jar and we put it in our window, and it was so much fun to watch and observe. That was just a really fun thing to do, and you kind of document it in your journal, and I'll show you that too in just a minute. That was a really fun thing to do throughout the entire lesson. But this one's nice. It has the prayer at the top. There's fun facts where it's kind of like a review of what we've already covered, things we already know about plants. Those were at the beginning of the lessons. I really enjoyed that. Lots of really nice real photographs and watercolor photographs. Those were nice to have as well. You learn all kinds of things. There are optional hands-on activities if you want to do those. I always try to do any of the extras because those are just fun and they bring the unit to life, and they really help my son make those connections. So we enjoy that. And then this here says, watch me grow, and that's just like, hey, go observe your plant, draw what you see, what do you notice, what's changed. That was a lot of fun. So we really enjoyed this unit. I mean, it was packed full of information, just like all of their units are. Like, we learn a ton, not just my son. I learn a ton from these units. A lot of good vocabulary, like diverse and conservation, evasive, all those good words you want your kids to know, they're in here. We really enjoyed it. You want to check out the appendix. Like I said, please watch the flip through. But one of the things I printed was the answers to the bingo narration, and I just put that at the back so I would have that at the end of every week. And then, of course, you have your student notebook. So this student notebook, I'll show you this really quick. If you're new to Gather Round and this is the first time you've watched something, in the Year 2 units, there is a seatwork page. There's one for every week, and how you use that is completely up to you. You're going to get a variety of responses if you ask how people use it. Some people print one for every day of the week. Some people laminate this sheet and let their kids write on it. Some people put them in protective sleeves. The only thing we used them for was the spelling. I would do a pre-test on the first day. He would work on them throughout the week, and he would take a test at the end of the week. But your copy work's on here. There's a lot of great things on here. So you can look at it and decide how you want to use it for your family and what works best for you. So that's really up to you. So that's in there for every week. And if you want to see what the student pages look like, definitely watch my flip through video. I'll show you like the first lesson, just in case you haven't watched the video or you don't know. So each lesson, after you read the teacher's guide, so you're going to read that to your child. If it's a lot of reading, don't be afraid to break it up with hands-on activities or videos, or giving them a break for a few minutes, or even completing some of the pages in the student notebook. Break up the reading so you don't lose your kids and they don't end up in left field somewhere and have no idea what you're talking about. It's a lot for kids to sit through, and it's a lot to process. There were some things I had to go back and read again. So break it up the best way you can to make it work for your family. But it's meant to be read aloud, and then the students go work in their notebooks. So you're going to have a notebooking page, and this page and most of the pages included some type of vocabulary, and they all look different. Like on this day, he was asked to list some jobs that botanists may do, and then here, what are the reasons that we study botany? Like, why in the world would we need to know about plants? And so it was a very interesting lesson. We learned a lot. Then he had a page about the branches of science. I love the way they put it onto a tree. It really helped him with the entire concept. And so we listed things that would be in life science, earth and space science, and physical science. Then we had a page where you made your botany book, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. You can purchase one off of Gather Round's website. You can purchase a botany book, and don't get confused. When you print it, it's meant to be an A5 size. So you're going to print it out on your printer, and then you're going to cut it down to size. We've had a lot of questions in the Facebook group about it and on the app. You can actually see on the app where some people have finished theirs and they shared pictures, so definitely check that out. but it is an A5 size, but we made our own, and this is some directions on how you can do it. We actually didn't make one. I'll show you what we did. You can make your own. You can use whatever you have to be your botany journal or botany book, but it is something you're going to need throughout the unit. So that's a part of lesson 1. This was Life That Breathes, and so it had a science experiment, and then it had an optional activity, and we did this where we used cauliflower and onions, and we took a picture of it, and so it looks like your lungs when you're finished. So that was a fun activity to do. And then we talked about being a scientist is very much like being a detective. And so we looked at some pictures, we did our fingerprints, and so they always look different. That's what I love about the notebooks. You're not doing the same thing every day. It's something engaging every day. So we love that about all the units, not just the botany unit. Let me say this about the botany unit. You will notice in the botany unit, there isn't a grammar page. The language arts is actually going to be done through their journal. Your kids are learning to journal. So if you're one of these people that are sticklers for worksheets and hitting hard on that grammar every day, this may throw you for a loop because you're not going to find that in this botany journal or in this botany unit. And that's why I love the botany unit. We're okay with just a little bit of grammar every day. We're perfectly fine with it. We actually have been doing Gather Round for 2 full years, using it exclusively. We add nothing to it. And my son just finished his end of the year test, the first time we've ever had to take a standardized test for homeschool in our state. And he was in the 99th percentile for language arts. And all we've been using is Gather Round. So I'm fine with what's offered as far as the language arts is concerned. But I'm just giving you a warning. If you are a parent that does like to have, you know, some heavy grammar and you're used to those grammar sheets and you want your kids to do it every day, it's not in this unit. You're doing language arts through journaling. So you're getting your kids to write complete sentences. You're getting them to describe these things using adjectives. It's going to come and you're going to have language arts, but it is through journaling. So I just want to put that warning up there first. It doesn't have the grammar pages like the other units do. So there's your heads up, just so you know. And I was trying to flip through. I should have had this ready, but I didn't. I'm sorry. This is what it looks like. It'll tell your kids, okay, now it's time to journal. This kind of gives them an idea. If your kids have never journaled before, my son doesn't journal. And so he didn't really know what to do, and it took us a couple of lessons for him to get into it. But they give them an idea of what they can do. They can draw on there, they can paint, they can go and get things from outside and tape them in, which my son thought was super neat. It also gives them some direction, like, hey, illustrate it, and then here's some things to think about it. Ask them some questions. It does give them some ideas just in case they've never done it before. So we actually really enjoyed the journaling part of it, and it was kind of a nice break from doing transportation the day before. We really enjoyed this. So it is different, but I want you to relax and embrace it when you do this. I think doing it in spring and summer is the best time because we were able to go outside and just in our neighborhood find the things that we needed. The plant samples, the things to observe. It was so easy to walk outside and do it this time of the year. So it worked out really well for us. A lot of fun activities in here. I know we made a salad. We did some painting. It was just so much fun. We learned so much. So that is the language arts that's in there. That's the writing, and the language arts comes from the journal. So I will show you that real quick. Like I said, we didn't make one. There are probably a ton of wonderful ways to make a journal. We use this little bitty notebook. It's a blank notebook from Walmart. I think it was $2.98. I mean, it's not much at all. He decorated the front cover because there's a clear piece right here. And like this was when we did the green onion and the cauliflower experiment. He wrote something about it. And this is where he did the parts of a plant. He wanted to go get the actual plants from outside and then label it. But of course your kids can draw pictures. There were also pictures in the appendix of the student notebook that they could cut out and put in there if they did not want to draw. So lots of options as far as that goes. And then here, this was the first day of his or not the first day, but after we had been watching the bingo, this is what he drew. And then they were to write something. And that day he just dictated to me and I wrote it down. And I was just trying to teach him, you know, a journal is you put the date on it and you just kind of write what happened, what you observed. That's all you have to do. So it took him a few times. This was one of the art projects, was to draw these trees, and he wrote something about it. It's hard to see because he wrote in pencil. And then this day, he was kind of figuring out the journaling thing a little bit more, and he's like, oh, today I want to make a list. And I'm like, that's fine, it's your journal. So he did that, and it was like characteristics of a woody stem and an herbaceous stem. And he knew it, guys. Like, it was so amazing to watch him where he wasn't really interested in plants, but I wanted to introduce him to it. He really took to this unit, and I didn't think he was going to like it, and he really did. So as you can see, our bean plant was growing. It actually got out of control and started growing some mold, so I did have to throw it out. But he just taped things in and took notes about it, and he really enjoyed it. Here he wanted to do some watercolor the day that we talked about fruit, so he did that. And then as you can see, this day, he didn't want to draw anything, so we used the cutouts that were provided in the back, and that works perfectly fine. He could do that as well. This was about seed dispersal, like it goes through animals, through water, and through the wind, and so he drew the wind and he wrote about that. We talked about pollinators, which was a very fun day. Trees. And then here's like our bean plant. I tell you, it got out of control. It was just crazy how fast they grew. And so he has that. And then we got to the end. He didn't learn. I learned about, I know what notebooking is, but I had seen this beautiful like watercolor notebooking pages. I'd first seen it on Ellen Fisher's channel here on YouTube, and then I heard it from Let's Play School. Chelsea from Let's Play School is doing it with her children this year. It's actually from Jody Mockabee. You can actually buy a PDF about how to do this type of notebooking, but it's where your child they'll paint, they can draw, paint, whatever they want to do. And then they tell you, they kind of like tell you everything they know about it. And then they go back and they write it on this beautiful watercolored page. So I'm planning to do it more next year, so I can show you more about it next year. But I was just trying to give it a go, and we didn't really know a lot about it yet. But this is the day that we learned about ferns. And so he drew the ferns, he watercolored the page, and then we learned real quick that flare pens are probably not the best to watercolor over. So you live and you learn, but that was his fern watercolor page. Then we were starting to get the hang of it, starting to figure it out, and this was the day we learned about fungi. And guys, I thought he did an excellent job on his watercolor mushroom. And then he would tell me everything that he had learned in that lesson. I would write it out for him so he could see correct punctuation and correct capitalization. And then he would recopy it. And so we got a little better as it went on. This was the day we talked about water plants, and so he just picked a water plant that he wanted to write about. And then this day, I think it was like just interesting. I can't remember the title of it. It was like rare plants, interesting plants. And so that's what he did there. And so we just kept kind of notebooking that way, and it really got a lot out of him. More than me just like asking him questions. I was like, okay, I want you to listen, so at the end you could just tell me everything that you learned. And he did really well at telling me everything that he gathered from that lesson. So that's how we did it. But it's your journal, it's your child's journal. Let them let them have free reign to get as creative as they want to. But we love this aspect of it, and I was perfectly okay with this being our language arts because journaling is a good form of writing. So we enjoyed that. So let me see. Another one of our favorite things, I know this video is getting kind of long, but another one of our favorite things was the narration bingo. Now, I only have one kid, so bingo is not very fun when you're playing by yourself. So I just made it a challenge for him to see if he could fill in the whole board. And one of the things I would do is a lot of times kids know the answers. It's just hard to retrieve them. So I would write the answers on Post-it notes, lay them out in front of him. He would pick a question. He would find the answer. I actually shared this on the app. In the botany lesson and in, I think, maybe the special needs of Gather Round, I shared what I did and he loved it. He was able to get those answers, cross off the board, and it was such a fun way to review. No pressure, just fun. We love that. Another thing we loved, these were the posters that came with it. Now you can buy the beautiful posters from Gather Round, and I encourage you to do that if you want something really pretty to hang up. These were just ones that I printed off of my computer, and we use these. It'll tell you in the lessons to go to the back and to find these, and so I printed these on cardstock and kept them separate so that when we needed to reference them, I could just grab them and have them ready to go. So like I said, these are in the back. They do come in black and white. If you want the beautiful printed colored ones, then you do have to purchase those separately. But even the black and white ones worked fine for the lesson itself. The last thing I want to share is one book that we read. You know we love the Who Was books, and my son is obsessed with George Washington Carver. He's already done a project on him before, and so I knew we had to read this book. We learned a lot of extra things about him that we didn't know, so I always recommend the Who Was books if you want a little more history to go with these units. So that was the botany unit. Overall, we really enjoyed it. When I thought my son wasn't going to like it at all, he actually really did. I learned a lot. He learned a lot. Definitely check it out if you're interested in plants, or if you just think this might be something your family wants to study. If you have any questions about the botany unit or Gather Round Homeschool or homeschool in general, leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.